Of course, the crowd wants Reed to go for it. Wouldn't be surprised if he did on 4th down and 1.
So, anyways, with that, time's yours.
Welcome to 4th and 1. I'm Tod Palmer, joined by a well-rested Nick Jacobs. Nick, for the third time this calendar year, the Chiefs faced the Cincinnati Bengals. For the third time this year, the Chiefs lost by 3 points against the Cincinnati Bengals. If you go to kshb.com, I recap the game and I go through, obviously the Chiefs are no longer sitting atop the AFC. I would still argue when you look at their remaining schedule and the Bills' remaining schedule, I still think the Chiefs have a great chance at being the number 1 seed and having that bye in the playoffs. So I'm not hitting the alarm when it comes to that. But I do have some concerns coming out of this game. But first, I just want to get your reaction to, are the Bengals now the Chiefs' biggest rival in the AFC? And why can't they seem to get over the hump against these guys?
Well, a rivalry means that both sides are winning.
So this is like the K-State KU basketball rivalry.
I'm not going to compare it to anything
or KU K-State football
that our listeners would be involved in. The Chiefs are going to have to. They won before Joe Burrow against the Bengals, but Joe Burrow's in town now. Jamar Chase is in town now. T. Higgins is in town now. Zach Taylor's in town now. The Bengals defensive coordinator, Lulu. I'm just going to call him Lulu.
Love his noodles.
He's going to be, he's in town. So, with that collective group, the Chiefs are struggling, and they're now 0-3 against them with some problems on the horizon. Essentially, what it comes down to is every time the Bengals play the Chiefs, they figure out a way to win the line of the scrimmage on both sides of the ball, whether they have superior talent or not. That is the reality. That is what is going to cause the Chiefs problems. When people say, hey, the Chiefs shouldn't be freaking out, everything's fine. You're right. It's going to be fine for the next 5 weeks. What's going to be the question is when you face the Titans, when you face the Bengals, when you face the Bills in the playoffs, maybe even the Dolphins, do you have a performance like that? Or do you rise above in the other games that you had potentially do that? And people can argue and say, well, they beat the Titans. No, they beat Malik Willis, who hadn't played before Titans. Ryan Tannehill's in that game, and Patrick Mahomes doesn't take the team and put him on his back. That ball game is yet another loss to a playoff team. So, that's a part of the problem as well. And this was another game where not having Tyreek Hill showed. And, the Chiefs run their offense through Travis Kelce. And if they can't get the ball to Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster can step up on occasion. But there's a lot of other receivers right now that just can't fill that void at this current venture in time. So there was times where Mahomes needed somebody else to step up to the plate, and they couldn't do it. So that all played a part in that puzzle.
Well, here's the. Look, I think it's worth pointing out that McCole Hardman Jr. remains on injured reserve, and Kadarius Toney missed his second straight game. And I liked a lot of what I saw from Toney when he was in there. I thought that he had quickly established himself as somebody that Mahomes had a rapport with, had a trust in, and could make some of those plays when teams were taking away Travis Kelce. But having said that, McCole has never shown the consistency week after week after week to make you feel like he's the solution there. And Kadarius Toney has never shown in his 2 years in the NFL that he can stay healthy long enough to be that guy and that you can count on week after week after week. So like you said, that is a concern. That you don't know. It's hard for me to have faith that that guy is on the roster this right now that Mahomes would have faith in. One thing I am starting to get some faith in, though, is I like the Pacheco-McKinnon running back combo. Like Pacheco he didn't get 15 carries this week, but he averaged over more than 4.5 yards a game. He he found the end zone. McKinnon was an effective change of pace type guy. They averaged over 5.5 yards a game. Do you feel like the Chiefs are starting to solve that part of the puzzle? Because they came out in the third quarter and kind of ran it down their throat and got that lead. And it looked like this evolution of the Chiefs offense that we had talked about in the offseason, we talked about at times this year. you were seeing it play out once again in real time. Do you like what you're seeing, at least from that aspect of it? Or is it, are you just more concerned about the fact that they can't seem to pass protect on the days when they can run block?
Well, here's part of the double-edged sword on this one. Sometimes when you run the ball, that at least doesn't expose your tackles to a lot of their poor technique and a lot of their poor issues. So that gives Mahomes a break from time to time, so he didn't have to carry the team on his back like they forced him to do far too often this year. So there's that aspect of it. Now, where the part where the run game seems to find its struggles is once they get inside the red zone and they really need it there, and it really gets tight and compacted, and you got to be able to knock some people off the ball. And if the Chiefs don't do it in a finesse way, they can't do it very often. And I'm curious to see if the Chiefs are going to add more 3 tight end sets into that, or add in an extra offensive lineman or 2 extra offensive linemen and try to be able to do that way. I don't care if they know you're running, knock them off the ball.
Right.
The Wildcat thing.
Win the line of scrimmage.
The Wildcat thing with McKinnon, I would prefer to see 2 offensive linemen in there, and wherever the heck you got to put them, and you go running down their throat that way. That's just the way I would go about that. But that's just me personally, because I like smash mouth football, and the Chiefs still don't like to play smash mouth football under this current era. The only time they even came close to it was 2015 with that offensive line, and that was one of their best offensive lines to date. Now, the other part of the thing, look, I mean, Pacheco can run hard and he can run in a straight line. Where he starts to have struggles, and it showed on that short third down play he converted. But for him, he has to make that cut quicker for his style of speed, and he would have actually gotten more yards. The longer he stretches stuff out with the lack of lateral quickness he has, he lets defenders catch up to him, and he loses a lot of the explosiveness that he does have. While McKinnon, on the other hand, has that explosiveness and finds the cutback and can cut off it immediately. Pacheco's like more of a riding lawnmower that's got a wider turn to it. And that may not seem like a big deal, but it's those wide turns that allow the pursuit to get there and limit the effectiveness of some of that blocking.
Yeah, I mean, it allows, Jerick McKinnon can outrun an angle that Isaiah Pacheco simply can't when a safety or linebacker's coming at him from the sideline. How much do you think they need Joe Thuney back? I mean, I didn't think Nick Allegretti, I think he's done a serviceable job, against Aaron Donald, but he got walked back by DJ Reader several times this week. And his deficiencies in the pass protection kind of showed a little bit. And then on top of that, the fact that you've got a left guard, who's a little bit deficient next to a deficient left tackle really, really makes that side of the line ripe for the picking for opposing defensive coordinators.
So Reader, in my opinion, is the Bengals' best defensive lineman. They go as he goes. In all honesty, if he got hurt in that game, the Chiefs could have done whatever they wanted to at that point. Reader's a rock star for them along that defensive line, and he stirs the drink. Him on their defense is what Mahomes is to the Chiefs offense. Like, I know that sounds dumb. That may sound stupid in comparison, but I'm just telling you, that's how important he is to that Bengals defense and what he does. Now, look, Joe Thuney, he got that ankle or leg rolled up on a couple weeks ago, and he was getting walked back after he got rolled up on that, and I knew that thing was hurting him because he normally doesn't get walked back like that. He's got a good re-anchor and able to reset his hands and get in there in the framework. So, like, for him to get walked back, it told me that ankle was, or leg or whatever's going on, was smart and pretty good for him to kind of give up the ground he was giving up. Allegretti's not a great pass protector. He's a solid run blocker. And the combination of him, Humphrey, and Smith is actually their best run blocking combination because of the power and ability those guys have blocking angle-wise collectively. You lose some ability pass protection-wise with Allegretti. Orlando, I mean, look, I'll go in on Orlando at this point, and I'll end up saying it. I try not to be negative on here, as people got upset when I was negative about him last year and that type of stuff, but I'm going to say my piece at this point with what happened today. Orlando can't handle speed rushers. Never been able to. He's not going to. He makes guys who are no names in the league look like J.J. Watt at times, and that shouldn't be the case. But there's issues with his sets. He doesn't have the quickest of feet. He can't work in space very well. and he doesn't have the best punch, and he lunges at times, and he can't bend very well. So all those things combined cause problems for him.
What would you say he can do?
He can certainly fill a spot on the offensive line. No, but I mean,
rattled off like every offensive, every fundamental you'd want a left tackle to be able to do, and we're like, can't do it.
So here's where the problem comes in, though. He's supposed to check the franchise. He's supposed to be the guy in charge of protecting the franchise quarterback. He is not supposed to get touched in any way, shape, or form, especially when he's making $500 million. Like, that's the one investment you have to protect at all costs. So with Orlando Brown, the issue you run in right there right now is every time he gets pushed back, every time he gets beat around the corner there, and Pat sees that, Mahomes takes off. He finds a spot and he steps up, or he flat out takes off. That's what he does. And what that tells me, whether it's said in press conferences, whether it's said publicly, because you can't throw teammates on the bus like that. So I totally get it. But I'm going to say the truth right here. That means you don't trust that guy. That means you know that guy's going to get you hurt. And so you're taking off because you don't trust that guy to be able to do what he needs to do and what he's getting paid $16 million this year to do. And if the Chiefs think that bringing that back next year under those circumstances is going to somehow be all right and make them a better football team, boy, I tell you what, man, you better get used to what you got going on right now, because it ain't going to get any prettier. And for Andrew Wiley gives what he has. That dude gives every single thing that he has. That guy does not quit on a play. He gives, unlike Orlando, who quit a handful of times. I know you'll talk about that in a second, who will just literally watch Pat take off and be like, well, all right, man, well, guess I'll watch the show from here. Wiley gives what he has, but he is out of position and always has been at tackle. And he knows that, but he works his butt off. He honestly would be a better left guard or even right guard. He's a guard in this league. That's what he can do, and that's where he can help that football team. But they don't have any other options at right tackle that they clearly feel comfortable with. So until Niang's up to speed, that's what they got. If I was putting the Chiefs offensive line together, I would have Tooney at left tackle. I would have Wiley at left guard. I would have Humphrey at center. I would have Trey Smith at right guard, even though I can tell since he got rolled up on in week one that ankle is probably still, I don't know if it's ever going to be 100% while he's playing football this year, but he does the best he can. And I can tell he struggles in his pass sets right now, probably because of it. And then at right tackle, if Niang could do it, that's where I'd put him at. Or you run a trial position for all I care at this point. Yeah, but I mean, your tackle spots,
Garen Christian, somebody,
whatever,
right? Somebody.
But I'm telling you, like, this offense goes as the offensive tackles do. And if Pat didn't feel comfortable with what protection he's getting, it's a wrap for that series, for that play, for that drive, like all that combined. Those are what caused the hiccups in this offense initially.
Well, or in this case for that game, because on the 3rd and 3 play right before Butker missed the 55-yard field goal, that was the play where I was like, come on, man. Like, you cannot, like Orlando Brown Jr. cannot with a straight face watch the game film from Cincinnati and say that he deserves to be paid top 5 tackle money in the NFL. No way, no how. It's just not possible. If he feels that way, he's deluded. And I don't want a left tackle who's deluded and doesn't understand what he is and what his value is anyway. Joseph Osai is not an elite pass rusher. The Bengals had a 3-man rush. Now, yes, the one guy who got asked to block one-on-one against that 3-man rush was Orlando Brown Jr. But newsflash, when you're the left tackle, you're the highest paid offensive lineman on that's playing out there, and you're supposed to be the best offensive lineman on the team, you're going to be the one asked to do the one-on-one blocking in a situation like that. Joseph Osai got around him faster than he could have gotten around me. I mean, whether it was getting the
Todd, you're giving yourself a lot of credit there, Todd.
I could have at least fallen down in front of him or committed a penalty, for the love of God. Like, I could have made him jump over me. I could have offered more resistance.
Tod Palmer, number 17 or whatever your number would be.
Oh, I absolutely would have been hurt. And I'm not saying I'm a better left tackle, but it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Like, he's set too deep. He completely missed the punch. He's tipping himself over, reaching. He was too far away to even get that. Osai made a simple inside move, and then, but even that, look, guys get beat, guys get off balance. Guys expect one thing, and Jerick McKinnon was in there before he went out on his route. So I'll give him a pass on that. What I don't give him a pass on is Mahomes eluded the initial rush when he got free and came up the middle and scrambled to the outside. But when Joseph Osai turned around and started to chase Mahomes down from behind, Orlando Brown Jr. went into spectator mode, which he does far too often in those situations. And what's frustrating about that is you can see that Pat doesn't trust him. But more than that, if you're an offensive lineman on the Kansas City Chiefs, you know that Patrick Mahomes is a wizard when it comes to keeping plays alive and those second reaction plays. You cannot give up on plays like that, especially in critical situations, late in games against opponents that the margin for error is almost non-existent like it is when they play the Bengals. Look, his technical deficiencies, everything like that, I get it. And that's why we talked about all offseason. I wouldn't pay him the kind of money he was asking because of those technical deficiencies. But you've got to play with heart and hustle. Like, you can make up for some of those technical deficiencies if you will just not give up on a play, if you will just keep fighting to the final whistle. If he would have made any effort to get back in Osai's way, Mahomes may have been able to scramble for a first down. We may be having a completely different conversation today. But far too often, he doesn't do it. And that's where I can't work with him. Not good enough to play left tackle. Ain't going to play hard enough to be, to try to make up for it. Can't do it. The Chiefs need to find a different plan.
Now, the play that fascinated me was 2 plays before on first down when Trey Hendrickson, what happened on that play? The Chiefs literally had a chip by either the tight end or receiver off the start of it to get into Hendrick's way to allow Brown time to set up on his set for his pass set there. Literally did what they had to help a left tackle who, spoiler alert, your left tackles, if they're what you need them to be, they're people you can leave on an island and you don't need to help.
Right. They shouldn't need the help.
Especially if you're paying them $16 to $25 million. That's why you're paying them that, is it's one less guy who has to stay in so they can get out on their route and be able to help give Patrick a 5th option or a 4th option, depending on what the formation is. So literally, they gave him help with a chip. Trey Hendrickson still beats him. Well, technically forklifts him, gets inside of him, forklifts him, then turns it into a bull rush right into Patrick's lap. And then Patrick sees that and says, well, he just got beat, rotates right around and runs outside there. And Trey just chases him down. Orlando's just like he's on a evening jog or an evening walk, a brisk walk. And it wasn't even that brisk. It was just a walk to get his steps in. And like, it just fascinated me. Like, I'm not saying look, the guy's better than I would ever be in the NFL. The guy's more in shape than I would be. Like, that's I'm not
literally everyone in the NFL. That's
but I like to at least recognize that I know my limitations personally, and I'm not arrogant to be like, oh, I would have done better. No, I would have done worse than Orlando, but I at least would have felt bad. I'm telling you,
on that Osai play, you could have fallen down and you could have at least turned and chased Joseph. You could have at least tried. All you had to do was try, and it would have been better than what Brown did there.
At minimum, I would have definitely put both my legs up and tried to trip him, and I'd been like, that's fine. Right. The franchise is fine, ref. Give me 10 of those.
That's right. Listen to me. I know for a fact that if a man was running at Patrick Mahomes with ill intent, that you would do what you had to do to stop that. Orlando Brown does not seem to feel the same way.
I will do whatever I have to do to protect the franchise. Probably not supposed to say that as a journalist, but I will do it.
Dad.
I will do it. I will do it for Patrick Mahomes, for 15 for the franchise, for what he's brought, for everything. You dang right. And you need a left tackle that's going to do that for you. Not that's say right. They're going to do it, but actually do it on the field. Don't talk about it. Be about it.
Speaking about not talking about it and being about it, I would like to talk about the defense a little. There was some chirping.
Don't talk about Bruno. Just don't talk about Bruno.
Yeah, all right, fair. There was some chirping this week, and it amounted to a whole lot of nothing because Hayden Hurst went out early, and
don't worry, Jamar Chase made sure he got us some sportsmanlike for it.
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase made sure he got in on it, but look, it is what it is. I mean, obviously, the Bengals took note of what Justin Reed had to say. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm Justin Reed that, I want to poke the bear when I'm not sure he's going to a Pro Bowl this year, Nick. So, but look, I've asked you a couple times now, when the defense has started to put together some decent performances and when the pass rush has shown up here and there, because obviously the inability to get sacks at times the last couple of years has been the biggest issue, in my opinion, on that defense.
Which is funny because that's literally what Steve Spagnuolo's scheme is built around.
It's supposed to be, right. They might give up chunk plays, but here and there, but they're, it's all about pressure. It's all about getting the quarterback on the ground, which is the one thing this defense can't do. But I've asked a couple of times, whether you were seeing signs that this defense was becoming like that 2019 defense that went to a Super Bowl.
What did I say? I don't remember.
I mean, every time you were like, we're going to have to wait and see, we're going to have to wait and see. Nick, I think we've seen. I think we can definitively say, when they play against top flight offenses, they're not. They don't have that gear. So what does that mean for this team moving forward into the playoffs and how they have to win and how they have to play?
All right, there's one point I'm going to make before I go to that, and I promise I'll get to it, but it's part of the point. So, I mean, the Chiefs this whole offseason, building this roster was built around being able to match up against the Bengals, being able to match up against the Bills, and being able to match up against, the AFC West. That's literally what that roster was built for, because they saw what the Bengals could do to them and they saw what the Bills could do to them. And they knew they were going to need to make some adjustments in their secondary and in their receiving group to alter that offense to be able to withstand what they needed to and to add to their pass rush. So they did what they could by adding as much secondary as they did. They overturned the wide receiver group and they added a couple pieces in terms of pass rush. So, I mean, for them to lose to the Bills in the regular season and for them to lose in the Bengals in the regular season, both by 3 or 4 points. So it means they're not terribly far off overall, but they know where they stand test-wise and where this roster stands test-wise to be able to go up against those teams. And even the Titans, potentially, just because of the physicality the Titans play with. They know where they stand in that regard. Now, what I'm going to say from a pass rush perspective, so much of their pass rush is built off, can Chris Jones win, whether it's a one-on-one or double team? And if not, are they able to manufacture pressure with a blitz off the edge or being able to create some type of blitz? And if they do, if Chris wins his stuff, then that allows Karlaftis to potentially get a one-on-one, Dunlap to get a one-on-one. And if they use Mike Dana as a 3-tech occasionally, Mike Dana can sort of do that at times. There are times, though, whenever they run the ball, they see Dana out there, all right, we're going to run it. And they did it today, and they were able to convert some stuff because Dana's not a run defensive tackle. Right. He's supposed to be a pass rush specialist in that area. So the kicker of it is, it comes down to do they have a quarterback who's going to burn them like Burrow does if you have to manufacture pressure with blitzes, and so they had to make a decision today. Hey, do we want to keep 2 safeties deep, run a lot more zone for our young secondary, and kind of take the paper cuts that they're going to have to, and kind of lean on our pass rush to either do what it can or not? Or do you manufacture pressure, leave your secondary out on islands, and really kind of, have to see what happens? And Spagnuolo tried to blend it as much as he could after they went up 14-3. But, I mean, there was times there where they got their answer that their secondary is still growing, still learning, and they're not where they need to be when they're facing the trio to the level of the Bengals. And that's kind of expected, with a group of rookies. But
honestly,
before I forget, I was going to say Juan Thornhill. This is a contract year, and Thornhill keeps playing himself out of a roster spot and out of a contract with the angles he takes and sometimes whenever it looks like he may be lost in his assignment.
Yeah, he is. I thought he started this season fairly strong, and he's gone downhill as the season's gone on. I actually think the young corners have they've been competitive. I like the spirit they play with. Like even on the play where Josh Williams gets beat there at the end on the first play coming out of the 2-minute warning, it's 3rd and 11, and Burrow converts that 14-yard pass on the slant route over the middle to T. Higgins. I thought Josh Williams had pretty good coverage. I mean, that's one where Burrow hung in against the pass rush because Chris Jones is collapsed in the pocket to the left, and Dana's about to hit him. And he hangs in there and he throws a good ball, and T. Higgins makes an incredible catch on it. I like the way that those guys fight and compete. I think they need a little bit more experience to understand tendencies, to understand how guys run routes, and just get a feel for the speed and the intensity of the NFL game. Because you got to remember, for Trent McDuffie, for Joshua Williams, this is one of the first times they've been in a playoff-like atmosphere on the road, right? For a game like that. So I like what I saw from them, and I agree with Andy Reid that this is the kind of game they can learn from. I think Josh Williams, and I said it on Twitter tonight, continues to grow each week when I see him. Are they perfect? No, but Rashad Fenton and Charvarius Ward weren't either, and the Chiefs were able to win a lot of football games with those guys. So I think that from that standpoint, I like what I see from them. But it doesn't matter if the Chiefs cannot find a way to take the pressure off those guys from, a series here or a series there by getting a sack in a big situation. And they're just not capable of it. Like Karlaftis gets pressure every once in a while, but he's yet to make big time impact plays. I'll be interested to see when they play the Bengals again next time. The one thing I didn't see a lot from the Chiefs, and I need to go back and watch, with the caveat that maybe I missed it on the game film. I didn't see a lot of A-gap pressure or anything like that where they were trying to bring blitzes on the interior against Burrow today. And so maybe that's something that they could still, have in the bag should they meet him again in the playoffs. But I think the best help that you could give that young secondary and Juan Thornhill and Justin Reed would be if you could actually consistently generate a pass rush. And I just don't see the Chiefs being able to do that against good teams. And it continues to mystify me how they can't do it against the Bengals. But I think because I think the Bengals have a fairly mediocre offensive line and one that gets taken. I think it's better than last year, but one that gets abused by good defensive lines. But I think it just highlights the fact that this is a very mediocre defensive line that the Chiefs are trotting out there.
And I think you're giving that defensive line a lot of credit there with that one. So props to you on that. Look, it is what it is on that. I mean, the Chiefs defensive line, they were always going to be revolved around what Chris Jones could be. Frank Clark, I mean, that tank has been running on empty for a while, and they're just trying to get what they can out of it at this point. And Frank's chugging along with what he has left at this point. Karlaftis is, he's gonna need a full off season of working on how to attack pass rush wise, how to do multiple moves, and it's gonna be, he's gonna need a lot of coaching in the off season to kind of be able to put it together with the type of hustle that he has as a football player and the athletic ability he has ceiling wise. I mean, so I'm not knocking him and saying he's a bust, he's this or that. He needs time. This is good learning experience for him this year. And like you said with the secondary, this was a great learning experience. The Buffalo game, the Bengals game, those were big for that Chiefs young secondary to understand what they're talking about what playoff football is like and what the atmosphere is like and all that stuff. So that's part of that aspect of it. So, I mean, those things combined that's just going to be the way it is. That's the way that scheme's built. And Spagnuolo was willing to take the lumps early on to not hang his secondary out there. Because guess what? The Bengals only got 2 explosive plays over 20 yards in the entire game. If I go back and look at some of the other ones, they had 6 or 7 in some of the other Chiefs games from last year. So they kept them, they protected the young secondary as much as they could with the limitations they had on defense.
Yeah, I mean, that said, Burrow completed 25 of 31 passes, and then, they ran for 150. So the Chiefs weren't real successful at taking away anything at the end of the day. But
they kept the rookies' confidence, okay? Take the win where you can get it, sir.
What I was going to say is I think that I have faith that Spagnuolo can learn from this game tape and put together a better performance the second time around, should they meet again in the playoffs. But at this point, I got to be honest, do you want to see them again in the playoffs? Because I kind of do. I really kind of do, Nick. I mean, I know that that's maybe tempting fate because the Chiefs have lost three in a row in the series, but like the competitor and like the Chiefs fan in me wants to see him in the playoffs and maybe smack him once. I mean, that's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I wanted to see the Bengals in the AFC Championship last year and saw how that worked out.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be a part of me who is confused as to how they blew a 21-3 halftime lead. There's always going to be a part of me that wonders how that game plays out. If they take the field goal or they run a play that doesn't involve throwing it to Tyreek at the 5-yard, run a play where the ball goes into the end zone at the end of the second quarter there. I mean, I full credit to the Bengals. They came back and they won that game, but I am not convinced that the Bengals are that much better of a football team than the Chiefs. And I look forward to the next opportunity the Chiefs have to prove that.
Well, the Chiefs had marked this one on their calendars since April. And dude, you know who was really bothered by it, and I haven't seen them lose their composure like that before? Was Mahomes at the end when he slammed his helmet against the bench.
See, now, yes, but I think I read that as a combination of him being a little fed up with the protection, because like I said, I think if I could notice it, and and not that it was hard with Tony Romo repeating it, but it was a 3-man rush, and they gave up immediate pressure because a certain left tackle offered as much resistance as Saran wrap. And on top of that, then he hurt his foot getting chased down from behind. That's a play that Patrick Mahomes is used to stepping up and making. And then, with him hurting his foot, I read it as like he was just like pissed. Yeah. When he came off the sideline. I don't know that it had so much to do with Cincinnati. I think he would have been pissed off against anybody in that situation if his left tackle was giving up pressure, a 3-man rush, and got him hurt. That's just my thought.
I get what you're saying, but he's had protection issues in other games too, and I don't remember him slamming his helmet like that afterwards.
That's true, but you got to remember he's sleep deprived because they got a new baby in the house. Bronze Mahomes was born Monday.
Are you his publicist? I mean, are you his publicist? That's what I'm asking.
I'm angling for the job.
Clearly. I mean, you are spinning this like a true PR wizard right now. We found Todd's next job if he ever moves on, and Todd's looking for a new gig. Apparently being a PR person is going to be in Todd's future with the way that cat is trying to spin this right now.
I mean, look, if they need representation for Sterling and Bronze, I would take the interview. I'm not going to lie. Mostly just maybe to like hang out with Brittany and Pat for the interview, right?
All right, Todd, the floor is yours right now.
Orlando Brown Jr.?
The floor is yours right now. If you want to do
no, we're not doing a public interview. No, we're not doing a public interview. And look, because I have to.
You're trying to sell yourself for the interview right now.
I have to demonstrate that I have the requisite, ability to avoid making a public spectacle, right? Like I know what things to keep private and what things to publicize. So I'm not going to put that out in the streets, Nick.
Hey, spoiler alert, Todd just sold himself without making it look like he just sold himself. A true PR wizard right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Am I that transparent?
You got to remember, I've dealt with a lot of lot of different PR staffs over the past 2 decades, as have you. There's a couple of key points I'll make, and then if you got any, then go ahead. A little piece of the puzzle that I'll say, early on when the Chiefs ended up having to kick that field goal, I remember looking, and Justin Watson didn't finish his route back there, and if he did, Mahomes probably throws it to him for one of the for the
and
touchdown.
he was clearly frustrated. He was gesturing at him.
Yeah, like if he does that, the Chiefs actually score a touchdown there, and it's it's not it's not a field goal. There's 4 more points, and guess what? Would the Chiefs lose by again? 3.
And look, the Bengals were in field goal position there at the end, but I take my chances with Pat trying to get in field goal range, with a minute and a half. Yeah, if it was that situation.
So there's that little puzzle piece. The next one for me is,
although we are kind of assuming that the Chiefs defense wouldn't give up a touchdown there.
Yeah. Next puzzle piece, I'm just trying to get through quickly here. So
are you saying you don't want me to interrupt?
I never want you to interrupt, but that's the world I live in there, Todd. Valdez-Scantling, the inconsistency with him, that's part of the reason where Pat's going to keep trying to throw to him and everything. But man, their deep balls are still off when he throws deep to him. It's because I don't think he knows if he's going to fully run the route or not. So he tries to put it in a spot, and it seems like Marquez always having to slow down and come back to it. But I'm like, I don't think he runs his route fully to where Patrick knows 100%, like, with Tyreek or something in the past, or Kelsey, that he's going to go full sprint to get to it. And so I still see that, that lack of chemistry there and that part of it. And I mean, he was targeted 6 times and he only caught 2 passes for like 70, 60, 71 yards, somewhere around there, 72, something like that. And as long as it's 45, if I remember correctly. But in all honesty, I think if McCole Hardman's out there on that field, I think McCole ends up getting some of those passes and maybe takes 1 or 2 of them the distance because of his speed. When McCole gets the ball, McCole has better speed than what Valdez-Scantling does. And Tony might, but I would have to see Tony do it on a 6-week basis instead of 1.5 games to be able to kind of put him in that ballpark. And then I want to bring up Travis Kelce's fumble. I'm not blaming him for this game. Kelsey's the Chiefs offense. Without Kelsey, this offense would be in bad position right now. It'd be in bad shape, and Mahomes, other than Juju Smith-Schuster, wouldn't have any receiver out there he fully trusted to do and execute everything correctly the way he needs. So, I mean, where Kelsey had the issue, and it's happened, a couple times in the past, is you got to secure that ball with your life, man. Whenever you got 2 defenders on you like that, you either need to drop to the ground and take no chances, but you want to get those extra yards. You wanted to fight for his team and do everything. And like that can be the result of it sometimes, but I am in no way blaming him. I'm not blaming the refs. There were plenty of opportunities out there for the Chiefs on offense and defense. If they execute correctly and do what they need to, they win that game comfortably versus it coming down to a 3-point loss the way it did.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you're going to blame Kelsey, I think you got to blame Butker, for missing the field goal as well. But again, we've talked about, I think a lot of the issue comes down to the offensive and defensive lines. That's where I put most of the of the blame, to the extent that there is blame to go around. Or I do think it's worth pointing out, this is a team that I think has won like 4 in a row and like 7 of 8 now or something like that, and did go to the Super Bowl last year, right? So it's not like losing by 3 points on the road at Cincinnati. This is in no way like that loss to the Colts earlier in the season, which remains inexplicable to me. Like, I think I knew going into this game, if the Chiefs don't play, if they lose the turnover battle, if they struggle to get to Joe Burrow, and generate pressure, they can lose this football game, right? Like, I think if you're being honest, you knew that was possible. Yeah. So this isn't a game that, like I said, I'm not going to overreact to the fact that they lost. But it's obviously noteworthy that they, that this team has become a thorn in their side. It's become a sticking point. It's kind of like for the Bills in the playoffs, what the Chiefs are, right? Like, and so, I firmly believe that the Chiefs are as good and can beat this Bengals team. But like you said, at some point you got to go out there and prove it. It's one thing to have that faith. It's one thing to have that belief. It's another thing, to go out there and do it. I think there was a little bit of that with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, before, the 2019 or before, some of the games there, especially coming out of the 2018 AFC Championship game, stuff like that. But look, I still think that all the goals the Chiefs have are out there. Look, they can clinch the AFC West next week if the Chargers lose and if they beat the Broncos. And then everything still can lay out before them that they want this season. But they've got to find some solutions, or at least find a way to address the shortcomings in the trenches, I think, moving forward.
We shall see what the week brings.
Well, it's probably not going to bring another baby Mahomes, so I won't have to do too much work in my side job as the PR for the kids.
The unofficial, like you have
right. Like I don't have the job yet, but I you got to fake it till you make it, right? Dress for the job you want, Nick. So.
Well, Todd, all I know is I am going to be on some PTO for a handful of days this week. I call it my December to remember. I have every Thursday, Friday off this year and the entire week after Christmas. So it's a December to remember for me. Yeah, and I always, I mean, once December 21st hits, like I'm off until like January 4th. No, well, guess there may not be a podcast during that time.
I mean, I'm covering the Chiefs games during that week, so you can still have me then.
Okay, well, you didn't tell me that. You lied to me. You just lied to me.
That's the only thing. I mean, I'll cover the Chiefs games, but that's my only working game.
You already lied to me. You already broke my trust. I can't throw this past to you now. So
that's fair.
I'm sorry. Nope, I just saw a guy coming from my left side. I got to take off scrambling.
Yeah. Well, from the Orlando Brown of the podcast, I'm Tod Palmer. You take care, kids.
Wait, am I the Orlando Brown?